All right, friends, welcome to the second video. This is actually the legit implementation portion of this whole EOS on ClickUp video. So if you didn't watch the first video, you can go back and see the high level of that. I set up a basic list template. The next thing we're going to do is set up your meetings template. And this is a little bit more complicated. So let's get started with that and create a folder for EOS meeting. So in this folder, you're going to have multiple lists. Now, there's something that you can mention here that I should mention about ClickUp that I've tried to figure out that just didn't work with this, which is basically the idea with having a meeting. Let me just show you what I mean by this, because I need to have a kind of a duplicate here to just show you. Let's just call this Kurt's board, Kurt's list, duplicate. So I'm gonna have my list. Basically, I'm gonna have my list and or board, whatever you want to call it, right? And I'm gonna have what I've got going on, what I've completed, etc. And then when we run meetings, we're gonna make a meeting. This whole folder is gonna be the meeting. So we've got in EOS, you've got multiple things going on. So you're gonna add multiple lists here for each of the meeting option kind of things. So you've got your headlines, your metrics, your scorecard, you've got your to-dos that you review, your goals, and then you've got your issues. So we're going to do that, set that up in this order. So we're going to go headline, headlines. I'm going to do no thanks on this. I'm going to rename this one. Just hit right click and you can rename this. This is going to be scorecard. I like to call it metrics. Drag and drop. You go through headlines first, and then you go to metrics, and then we've got our goals, create, and then we've got our to-dos, and lastly we've got the issues section, issues. And usually we're going to call this the meeting template, right? So template. So we'll duplicate from this, and all the sort of features we want to have running in here are going to run through this, and we can make different meetings. So say you have a bigger organization with 2 or 3 departments that you need 2 or 3 separate meetings. You might have 2 or 3 separate meeting folders. In this case, we're just going to treat this one, since I'm not, again, best practice with ClickUp, make a template and then duplicate from the template. That way you don't have to do all this extra redundant work. I'm not even going to bother naming all this crap template and stuff, but we're just going to have this build out, right? This is really what you want to see. You just want to understand what's going on here. I like to have the meeting name in here, sales, or we call it offense versus defense, sales and marketing in my company. That's just how I like to do it. So again, you would as best practice make a template. In this case, we're not. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set everything up. So metrics is actually going to have a view. We're going to add a view here that is just a external link. So if you come down here, any website. And what's beautiful about this, I'll show you. Let me pull up another window here. This just kind of gives you a perspective. Say you have a Google Sheet. You're just going to have conditional formatting. You can follow this framework. Set up a target. Set up the previous weeks. Have people, conditionally format if it's equal to or greater than, enter in the numbers for the revenues, who owns these metrics and what these are, etc. And then when they load in this metric, it just feeds right in from here. So that's the beauty of that. They can't edit directly in here, but they can go to the sheet just by getting in there. And then I pin this one. This is the first thing that loads when you click metrics, and you can see what's going on with the business. So that's the big piece that a lot of tools don't offer. You can have different things, but this metrics, if you want me to send you this template, just shoot me an email and basically subscribe to the newsletter and shoot me a DM and I'll send it to you. So that's my ask for you. Just jump on the email list and then send me an email. I will personally make sure it gets sent to you. A template, like a basic template with the formatting. Now, I'm not a Google Sheets expert, but I got this from somewhere and I just modified it. As far as goals go, goals are bigger than to-dos. So typically we think of to-dos as tasks. Here's another thing you can do. You can change these icons, numbers, score, metrics. There was a image in here that kind of represented the numbers that I liked. and now I can't find it. So it was like a kind of like a chart, something like this, right? Chart line, chart bar. So, you know, that could be your icon for your metrics, right? And then your headlines could be like caution, warning. There was one where it was kind of like a, you know, be careful right here, right? So that could be your headlines. Again, headlines, this is where you just announce stuff. Like, people don't even need to necessarily acknowledge it, but you're saying like, you know, hey, out of office next week, traveling, missing 2 meetings. And you can, you know, let people know when you go through the meeting, you spend a couple minutes on headlines, you spend a couple minutes on metrics, and then you got your goals section. Now this is different. Goals are much more strategic, and this is where you're going to set and probably create a unique view. So we're going to actually treat this a little differently. There is a cup trophy. So I would use this. ClickUp has what's called task types. If I go in here, test, and I come in, you can actually see right here, task type. And we can go to settings. They have defaults here. We can create a task type called a to-do, to-dos. And then the icon. You just have to play with this and figure out what makes sense to you as far as what you want this icon to look like. It doesn't matter too much, right? It's more just, does it make sense? Does it add some level of clarity and separation on what's going on? But, you know, this default icon is fine for now. Here's probably the best one. Something like this, maybe. This calendar checkbox. I think a check. Yeah, this is actually probably the best one for it to do. And I'm pretty sure that's what we did. You can color code this. I would not. But now let's go back to our settings, and we can change this to check. So again, it creates more intuition, right? To-dos, and then issues is a list. That's really what it is. Issues, and then I think these default task types, this is where you can kind of change the nature of things in here. Default task type, right? You can edit this. And now if you create a task type like an issue, we'll call it an issue, issues. There's a little bug, right? That's what I like for this one. And so now in here, testing. Okay, so I got to set this up here as a default task type, and we're going to make it an issue. So that should change things now. Let me go ahead and delete this one. See, now it's showing the bug right there. So discuss upcoming deadline being missed, right? That's one thing right there that I'm concerned about for my team. Our goals are off track with our MER target on Meta, about 75% of where we want to be. I will claim this as me. You can default. There are automations in here if you really want. I don't recommend you use automations in these sections here because it can really mess things up. Where I will tell you to use automations is in goals and in to-dos. So when you run your EOS meeting, you'll go through your headlines. You'll review your numbers from your Google Sheet. You'll reflect on your goals, which we need to put default task type here to be goals. So let's go ahead and do that. And make a goals, and then let's do a cup trophy, right? Great. You go back, and now we have to set it because we didn't have it before. So there's your goals. And so now you have different types of tasks. To-dos, default task type is a to-do. So now we come back to this view, and now you can see there's a little to-do icon, right? So we've got goals, you can add a goal, and we need to add a couple here. So I've got a headline here, and you know what? Let's just do the last thing here. Let's just do a headline just to make it congruent and pretty. So here, headline, headlines, icon, alert, caution. Where the heck is that silly little... Oh man, it's a little hard for me to... Right here, I think. Create task type. Let's go back. So look, we select this default task type and we've got headline matching, right? Perfect. Now if we come back here and we close this out, complete, now we could say Kurt out of office, mid-August, working from Seattle. And then we've got metrics here. We've got our goals, achieving 1.75 MER. Let's just call that a goal. We'll assign that to me. And then we'll say the due date is by the end of the month. And then we're going to actually need to go at 50K spend a month. Spend. Cool. So this is this is a goal that belongs to me, and we can set up milestones underneath this. So if we wanted to come in here and add a milestone, we could say test 15 angles. Update offer 2 to 3 times per month. And again, these milestones can belong to me. They can belong to specific members. We can set milestone dates, right? We can kind of break this up how we want to achieve this goal. The other thing I like to do with goals is create a progress bar. I'm not 100% sure how to do this, but we're going to make it happen. I think progress auto. Yeah, so it's going to track completion. So we'll call it progress. Goal progress is what we'll say. Goal progress. Create that. Now you have a field in there. Now if we come back, we can go progress. And we can go dink. Check this out, guys. So if I mark this part completed, it should update. So let's see, go back in here. It's at 50% done. Now I do want to show completed tasks. I don't love when it auto hides completed tasks. So for me, show closed. I like to see everything going on, but it's fine for now. But you can kind of see how this is becoming what it wants to be, right? It's becoming an issue. What I would do here is maybe make a vote for issues, because you want to create a vote, right? So it could be an emoji like this. Let's do a thumb up. Let's call it a vote. Create. Now it's going to attach to this a custom field called a vote. And so for all the team members in ClickUp that are joining the meeting, they can go, this is an important issue. Second issue, less important. Belongs to me as well. Doesn't have a vote. And then we can set a sort here. Make sure that we sort always by the votes. Because the general rule of thumb when you run an EOS meeting is so that you are optimizing for time and importance. You're spending time on the most important things in the discussion part, and you're going boom, 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 and you're picking the most important things, because there's always more to talk about and more time to consume from a meeting than there is actual time for meetings. So you want to create urgency, and this allows you to do that. Now, this is all great, right? We just built an EOS meeting framework. You've got your headline, so when you run your meeting, you start your meeting, go through the headlines. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Here's some headlines, maybe some customer wins, customer losses. Usually you share a piece of good news, both personally and professionally, in that headline, and any kind of major updates. And then you go right into metrics. I actually recommend you put your goals above your metrics, because you want to remind yourself, like, how are we doing with these goals? And then there's one more thing I put, which is on track. So I like to do, this is something that they've built in. So with custom fields, let's add one more in here, create a field. Let's add a custom field right here, create a field. It's a drop down, custom drop down, and we're gonna call this goal status. And then you've got on track, track, off track, not started. And I would do yellow for not started, off track would be red, on track would be green, create. And what I like to do in the goals section is have the status showing up so that we know this one, this sucker, it's here, it's loading. This guy is on track, baby, because we just checked off one of the 2 milestones over the next 30 days. It's August 2nd right now, I'm recording this. This is cool. So now look, we can say not started, we can say on track, and each week we have goals in the business that we will reflect on and establish every quarter, every half, every year. We can look at this, and the first thing we do after we talk about the quick headlines is go into our goals. And then we review our numbers. I believe with Bloom Growth, L10 meeting flow, goals or metrics first. So I believe with the metrics, the flow might be metrics before goals. Inform more of what's going on with respect to the goal statuses themselves. So, you know, you might jump in and go, well, I don't know how we're doing with our goals because we haven't reviewed the metrics here. So it looks like, yeah, goals go above metrics. Yeah, everywhere I see it, you put goals first. And that makes sense to me. More so, I guess. Usually you don't want to see your performance before you review your target. So you review your target, then you look at your progression of like how you are with your target. So that's the framework here. Now, in the next video, I'm going to give you I'm going to show you how you would run the meeting and how to automate this. So when you assign a to-do to me, it shows up on my board, but it dynamically sits, it mirrors. It's going to show up on my board, and it's also going to mimic and show up in the to-do section. And so you'll be able to see how that connection is made. Completely automated, completely dynamic. You don't need to copy and move the task back and forth. The item will stay on both places. So it lives and breathes in both places. And that way you have accountability and you have visibility to who owns it. The same thing with goals. We'll do that in the next meeting, and you'll see that part as well. So I hope this was helpful. We built this now, so your next step is to actually experience their fruits and really kind of put the finishing touches on how this can integrate into your workflow and space. Now, lots of other features in ClickUp. They have all these different customizable lists, views, features, statuses. I do not recommend that you indulge in all of that, because as soon as you start changing these statuses, if you try to move a task from one place or copy it or have that mirroring effect, and there's different status names you're using on your board versus someone else's board, now there's going to be room for things to kind of break. There's room for differences of the formatting. And so find what's universal. If you're the owner, founder, be the dictator, make the decision, and then force everyone to follow that framework. And if they truly, truly need a specific use case for something, they can add that. You can add that for them as the admin. But for now, I would say this is a good foundational framework. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to mirror the tasks so that we can run them. We can have them in the EOS meeting, and then we can also have it when it gets created, it gets assigned to me in our boards. We'll have our tasks, like all of our kind of to-dos, both our to-dos list and our to-dos board. We'll have a view for goals. That will be only goals. So not to-dos, not milestones, but the actual goals that can mirror from the meeting. This will be on both here, and it will be on my list here on my board in a goals view. So I'm going to set both of those things up and then kind of mock through. Hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.